Hey, Don Williams here with today's episode of the Proven Entrepreneur Show. We've got a great guest for you today. Lady I've known, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years. She's from San Diego, California. Stephanie Nivinskus, welcome to the show.
Hey, Don, thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure, I assure you. Now, I know that you're the founder and CEO of Sizzle Force Marketing, but please share with us, what does Sizzle Force do? Who do you do it with? Why do you do it? All that good stuff.
Yeah, Sizzle Force Marketing is a fractional CMO agency that is powered by artificial intelligence and perfected with human intelligence. We work with scaling companies, typically that are doing about $2 to $10 million in revenue annually, and all kinds, both B2C and B2B. And gosh, I do this because I love it. I've been doing it my entire career. Started in 95, and as soon as I started, I was like, I found my thing, and here we are.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. You must have been about 5 when you started. And so, well, just say yes and on we go. So,
Sure.
okay, so I'm going to take you all the way back to when you were 5 years old. So,
Okay.
little Stephanie, okay,
Mhm.
in the household where you were raised, and I know that takes a lot of different forms for a lot of different people. But what I want to know is in your schoolgirl years, 5 to 18, was there an adult in your home that was an entrepreneur that set an entrepreneurial example?
Hmm. My mother and my stepfather both kind of had side gigs as entrepreneurs, but they had the stability of the regular 9 to 5. Their side gig, they were both therapists, so they would see some patients like a little bit part time in the evenings and whatnot. Um, but the real entrepreneur stuff actually goes back a few generations. My great grandfather and my grandfather were both very serious entrepreneurs.
Oh, I love that. And so your parents were kind of like what I would call W-2s with side hustles,
Right.
and love that. And I think everybody who lives in W-2 land ought to have a side hustle. And if you get really good at your side hustle, maybe that becomes your main hustle, and you let the W-2 thing go. And this show is all about helping entrepreneurs take the next step. And sometimes that's W-2 taking that step into entrepreneurship, and sometimes it's the entrepreneur going ahead and borrowing the $100 million, and everything in between. Everybody has a next step, and it's always a little different. So, okay, love that. Tell me your first job. And your first job, you may have been an entrepreneur. You may have been, mowing yards or selling lemonade or whatever, but you also might have been working at Dairy Queen. Okay, it doesn't matter. But tell us about the first time you traded time, effort, and elbow grease for dollars. What were you doing?
I was working at a store called Long's Drug Store, and I was a very proud cashier.
Oh, very good. Okay. And I'm guessing a drugstore back at that time also was kind of a variety store. So it had
Yeah.
more things than just, yeah. Okay. Very, very good. So after that, okay, you graduate high school. Okay. You um, sailed around the world for a year. You hiked across Europe. You joined the Marine Corps. You went to university. What did you do after your school girl years?
Yeah, I went straight to 4 year university. I went to San Diego State. So I moved about 500 miles away from home.
Okay.
And I made a decision at that point that I was leaving home and I wasn't going back.
Yeah.
And I started studying journalism, and 4 years later graduated. And 3 weeks after that, landed my first job.
Oh, that's awesome. And so went out to San Diego State, fell in love with the weather, said I can't live anywhere else. And yeah, heard that story once or twice before. And so, yeah, love the weather in San Diego. Oh my gosh. I'm actually going to be in Guatemala next week. And Guatemala, the year round high is 80 and the year round low is 60. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's almost, to me, San Diego's like year-round low of 65, year-round high of 75. And if there's a cloud 30 miles out at the ocean, the natives are like, oh, it's going to be cloudy today. And I'm like, oh, come to Texas. Let me show you some real weather.
Well,
Okay.
that's when we get our like blizzards jackets on and our snow hats.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
Clouds are scary.
Understood. Okay. So got your first job, JOB, W-2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how long did you do that before you started your, I don't know if Sizzle Force is your first entrepreneurial venture, but how long were you a W-2 before you said, heck with this, I'm going to start my own thing?
Yeah, it was just shy of 10 years. And I was one of many people who this was during the time period where .com had already become a thing, and now wireless was the big thing. And so I was working in the marketing department for one of the very first app development companies. And one day walked into work and they said, guess what? We're not going to be here tomorrow. We lost our funding, so go home and don't come back. And indeed, the doors were indeed locked the next day. Nobody could get in. So I found myself in this situation of, well, now what? And at that point, I just decided, you know what? I know what I'm doing here. And I actually want to start marketing for things that I really believe in and things that I really care about. So I started my first marketing agency shortly thereafter. And I ran that for a few years. And then I got pregnant. And then I became a reproduction machine and I continued spitting out babies. So I stepped away from that for the most part. I won't say I completely hung my hat up, but I definitely scaled way back when I had little ones. And then in 2009, I decided, okay, I'm ready to get back into this. And here we are.
There you go. And so, reproduction factory, you have, how many children do you have?
I have 3.
Have 3 children. Yeah. Love that. And yeah, that made your house a really busy place for a while.
Yeah, I had 3 kids under the age of 5, and then we adopted a son as well. Unfortunately, he ended up passing away, but we at one point we had 4 kids. So yeah.
Wow. Busy house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So was your first entrepreneurial venture, was it Sizzle Force?
No, Sizzle Force was my second one. The first one was called Spirit Led Marketing. And it was still a marketing agency, but it was just focused on a niche of nonprofit Christian organizations.
Okay, love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. And so then Sizzle Force came along. And so thinking back across your career, I'm going to ask you a question about, and typically when I ask this question, entrepreneurs are like, oh, yeah, I got a lot of those. But I want to ask you a question about a hard moment. Okay. So something happens, that an event happens that at the time it was just crushing. It's like, oh my gosh, that hurts. But the kind of hard moment I'm looking for is an event that while it was approaching devastating at the time, today, now that some time has passed and you have some perspective, you can look back on it and say, might have been one of the best things that ever happened to me. And the difference being just the timing of that event. Because as we know as entrepreneurs, it's not really what happens. It's more about how we take it. The problem is not the problem. The problem is how we react to the problem. So, got a hard moment you can share?
Yeah, I've got one that's actually not too far in the distant past. So, as an AI marketing consultancy, let me back up a little bit and tell you that I made my living writing copy for the bulk of my career. And so when AI marketing tools came on the scene, I first heard about them it was probably about 2019 when I first started hearing the, people start chattering about them in my industry, but nobody outside of my industry was chattering much about them. And so I tried them and I was like, okay, whatever. Wasn't really impressed, just kind of ignored it after I played with it. Well, fast forward to this past November 2022 when ChatGPT came on the scene. And that was a game changer. All of a sudden, it really felt like an overnight shift, monumental shift in my industry, where at one point, the bulk of my career, I felt like copywriters were revered. People were very respectful of my ability to tell stories using the written word in a really captivating way. And it's almost as if overnight that respect disappeared.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, I can do this with ChatGPT. Who needs you? And I'll tell you, that was really hard. It was really scary. And the more time that passed, I'm talking this shift was so fast that it happened like in days, weeks. Okay. This isn't something that went on for years and years, right? So honestly, the change started happening so fast, and I started hearing I'd be on calls with clients that I had had for many years, and people saying, so I heard about this chat GPT thing, and I started playing with it, and I realized I can do da 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 da. And these are all the things that I had been doing for them. I'm like, oh no. So if I'm being completely transparent, I will tell you I got pretty scared, and I got pretty ruffled over it because I'm like, what is going on? And ended up getting really anxious about it, like bad anxious, like the kind where you're having like anxiety attacks and you can't breathe, right? And I had never experienced that before, never. And went to a pretty difficult place for a good 4 to 6 weeks, and was just really questioning, what am I doing? What's next? How, I honestly felt like an identity loss, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And then one day, after a lot of prayer, I just woke up and I was like, well, I have a choice to make. I can either continue wallowing and continue living in a state of fear and just watch my business disappear before my eyes, or I can take the bull by the horns and I can decide, you know what? If we're going to do an AI puppet show, I am going to become the puppeteer, and I'm going to learn how to use this tool better than anybody else. And that was the decision I made. And that was the pivotal point. So here we are. That was sometime in February. Come March, I had already invested a couple hundred hours in my own training. I went all in. I stopped doing everything else. And I enrolled in all these different courses, and I just played and played and played and played with every AI tool I could find, trying to crack the nuts and figure it, come up with the hacks and figure out all the things. And come March, I got an opportunity actually to teach somebody what I was learning. And I taught them, and they freaked out at how awesome it was. And here we are in, at the tail end of summer of 2023. And now this has become an incredible gift to me. I feel like all of these AI marketing tools have made me better than I've ever been at what I do.
Love that. That's a great story. And many entrepreneurs, almost all probably, at some point, if they're in the game long enough, find a time when they have to pivot or let it go. And so love that. It's okay to be upset for a while. I mean, we're all human, but then to reach the point of, it's either going to get me or I'm going to get it, and I choose to get it. And so turns out that what for many copywriters has probably been their mortal enemy, okay, because large language models, which is the technology that ChatGPT and others function on, they're now, I take a little exception with artificial intelligence. I don't think it's actually intelligent. I do think these supercomputers with massive computing power and exceptional pattern recognition software, they can put words together a lot of different ways if you're just smart enough to tell it how to do it. And if you're not, it's a little sterile, and so, and I know that you are expert in the field. And so thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now what about, I want a piece of wisdom. I want a nugget. I want something that you hold near and dear to your heart about entrepreneurship that maybe you share all the time, or maybe you don't share. You're a pretty open person, but typically entrepreneurs have a couple foundational pieces of wisdom that have kind of helped them along their path. And so, do you have if we knew what you knew, what would we want to know that you know?
Great question. She who quits first loses.
Oh, I love that.
How about that?
I love that a lot. So many times, entrepreneurs are successful just because they don't quit.
Yeah.
They just keep going. I have a really good friend who is retired Marine Corps recon. So that's the Marines version of the SEALs or the Rangers or the Green Berets or all of that. And as he's telling stories about the training that he went through, like BUDS, for the SEALs and all that, I finally asked him one day, I was like, it sounds to me, I mean, you're not the biggest guy, you're not, I'm pretty sure I could beat you arm wrestling, you're not the biggest guy. You're not a remarkable physical specimen, you don't look like Bruce Lee, but you had this really high intensity job. I said, it almost sounds to me like the people who made it through were the people who just wouldn't quit. And he said, there's something to that. Is that, 100 people enter the training, 3 exit successfully. And then there's another level, and about 50 enter that training, another 3. And he said, the guys standing at the end, and today the ladies, guys and gals standing at the end, they're the people who just won't quit, that just keep going. And I think the same is very true about entrepreneurs, because no matter who you are, you can go to the mountain and to the valley over and over and over again. And sometimes people who aren't entrepreneurs, they hear that and they're like, no, I don't think that's right. I'm like, look, even, General Motors went bankrupt. After 9/11, every airline but one filed bankruptcy. It doesn't matter how big you are, how long you've been around, how established you are. Every day is a new day. And you have to be able to make decisions based not on what happened necessarily, but on what's happening. And so I love that. Okay, so here's the tough one. Okay, this makes them cry every time. No, it does not. No, it doesn't. So I'm going to put you in a time machine, Stephanie, and I'm going to send you back, just like, what was it, Star Trek? I'm going to send you all the way back to talk to 20-year-old Stephanie. Okay, can you picture?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. And so I'm going to put you in the time machine, going to take you all the way back to 20-year-old Stephanie, and you're going to get about 90 seconds to share something with your 20-year-old self that you know now, but you didn't know then. But had you known it then, and had you listened to what you are going to learn, which many 20-year-olds won't, or 40-year-olds or 60-year-olds. But had you heard it and had you listened, it would have eased your path, sped you along your journey to successful entrepreneurship. So into the time machine you go. There you are. There's your 20-year-old self. What do you tell her?
You are just as capable, just as smart, and just as talented as all of those people that you look up to. And you can do anything they can do and more.
I love that. Okay, I'm a big fan. You know this about me. I'm a big fan of wise words. And every once in a while I have some of my own, but I don't care where they come from. And so I don't care if it's Aristotle or Seneca or, I don't care where they come from. But one of my very favorite quotes, probably my favorite quote of all time, is you are far smarter. You're far better, far smarter, and far stronger than you think. And I love that quote. And of course, that was the wise philosopher of Christopher Robin, who was relaying that to Winnie the Pooh in the book titled Winnie the Pooh. And so I think every entrepreneur at some point in time, and maybe every human, probably every human, needs to realize you are more than enough. You have everything you need to achieve whatever level of greatness that you want, and however you define that greatness. And the opposite of that, and I think where many humans exist, they carry around the little imposter syndrome, where it's like, am I good enough? I'm not good enough. They're so much better than me, blah, 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 blah. But, what we know, and psychologically what we know to be a fact, is that it's only an idea. It's not the truth. And so, though sometimes ideas, can be enslaving. And so, so I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I have that quote that Christopher Robin is famous for actually on a picture that my husband gave me. And it is sitting on the table in my office right next to me right now, right over there.
What a great husband he is.
He's a good one. I got a good guy.
Yeah, love that. So I'll say that again for our audience. You're far better, far smarter, and far stronger than you think. And that's true of each and every one of you. And so tell yourself that. Your mind actually cannot tell the difference between what you imagine and what really happens. And so if you tell yourself that, your mind will believe that. And hey, that's an important piece right there. So, okay, Stephanie, a couple years as an entrepreneur, started out when you were 5. Okay, went and did the journalist gig. Worked for a company that was using outside capital. The capital faucet got shut off. Found out, hey, I need a job tomorrow. Started your own gig. Started another gig. Really accomplished copywriter. Long career as a really accomplished copywriter. AI comes in, large language models, and says, hey, anything you can write, I can write 17 ways better. Okay. And I can do it in Mandarin or Chinese, Spanish or backwards or Pig Latin or however you want it. And I remember the first time I was demoing ChatGPT for some entrepreneurs that I was leading on a retreat in Cabo. And this was back about February. So ChatGPT had come out, I think, in November. I didn't hear about it until December. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, this is like inventing the wheel. It's like inventing fire. This is going to really take off. And so we were staying in this great house on the beach in Cabo, and in a neighborhood where they don't have addresses, they just have names, really nice house. And so I was demonstrating ChatGPT, and I said, write a 2-paragraph marketing blurb, about this house, the name of the house in Cabo. And, it took it about a second to start and about 5 seconds to finish. And everybody was like, wow, that's amazing. And I was like, oh, you think that's good? Watch this. Now, please rewrite it like I'm Ernest Hemingway. And it takes it about a second to start and 5 seconds to finish. And there it is. So rather than running home and burying your head under your pillow and saying, oh my gosh, the world is ending, you decided to master AI and add that, in my opinion, also important human component to AI generated text, which also is a little clunky to me. It's very good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like human interaction, and so you've started to do that. So what's next for you, Stephanie? What's on the horizon? What's the frontier? When you get out there where you don't know what's going to happen, what's next?
Well, who knows what's going to happen with AI, right?
Yeah.
Just what was it? A couple of days ago, the Department of Defense put out a notice saying that they've started an AI task force. And how is that going to affect things? I don't know. None of us know, right? Might be great, might not be great for those of us that are using it for business. We'll find out. So I think right now I'm very much in the trenches of the new frontier as we speak. Where, every day there's a new AI tool that comes out. There's every day it seems like there's a new standing that the media takes on this. Every day people have more opinions on this, and so on and so forth. And so I feel like I'm living the frontier right now. As far as what's next, ask me in an hour what's next, because I'm sure something new is coming in the next 60 minutes.
I love that. And so much of the time, I think success as the entrepreneurs, we don't know what's coming next. We just know
that's what makes it fun.
We just know that whatever it is, we're going to be able to handle it.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun is like, it'd be so boring if everything was so predictable, right? I love, well, it does, it gets me nervous sometimes.
Yeah.
I will say there is something invigorating about walking in unknown territory and exploring something that has yet to be truly discovered. There's something very invigorating and exciting about that to me, and very hope giving.
I love that. And, I know this to be true, that we all love our comfort zones because, hey, it's comfortable. It's like your favorite shoes, your favorite chair, your pillow, it's just comfortable. So you just like it and you want to stay there. But the good stuff for you is outside of your comfort zone. And AI is evolving so rapidly. There's, 1,000 new applications every day. And so who knows where we end up, but as long as you're ready for the ride, you'll figure it out and it'll be okay. Okay, Stephanie, how would a listener reach out to you at Sizzle Force Marketing?
Yeah, I would love to hear from any listeners. So you can find me at sizzleforce.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in learning some of these AI marketing tips for entrepreneurs, check out what I'm doing on TikTok, which the handle is at sizzleforce.
Love that. Love that. Stephanie, I'm so glad you joined us today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your success story.
Thank you so much.
That's today's episode of the Proven Entrepreneur Show. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.